Welcome to the Heroic Investing Show. As first responders, we risk our lives every day. Our financial security is under attack. Our pensions are in a state of emergency. A single on-duty incident can alter or erase our earning potential instantly and forever. We are the heroes of society. We are self-reliant and we need to take care of our own financial future. The Heroic Investing Show is our toolkit of business and investing tactics on our mission to financial freedom.
Welcome to the Heroic Investing Show, a podcast for first responders, members of the military, veterans, and anyone looking to improve their financial future and gain some freedom with their time. We teach America's heroes how to build passive income, build their startup business, and safely grow wealth through real estate and other alternative investments. We help current and prior first responders put protections, systems, and a team in place to help them build a life where they can focus on their passion, that service or product that they are uniquely gifted to share with others, making the world a better place for all of us. My name is Gary Pinkerton, and I co-host this show with Jason Hartman. This is episode 202. Today we have with us Colonel Clifford Worthy. Colonel Worthy is a career Army officer, having graduated from West Point, one of the earlier African Americans to graduate from there. And back in 1950, I think 1949, he graduated. And so that puts him just shy of 90 years old. Another incredible individual with lots of wisdom that I think the audience will greatly appreciate. He's written a book called The Black Knight, An African American Family's Journey from West Point, A Life of Duty, Honor, and Country. I found this episode, as well as his life in the civilian world, following the military and his time in service of nearly 40 years of helping out the disadvantaged, really, really inspiring, but also quite informative. I think you cannot listen to an individual who's got this many years or this many times around the sun, as they call it, without finding some pearls of wisdom. So please enjoy this episode. Well, Heroic Investors, thank you so much for joining us for another episode. I think you're really going to enjoy this gentleman we have on today. I might say that every time, but I definitely take an opportunity when we have Vietnam soldiers, Korean War veterans, and members from World War II, when we have an opportunity to bring gentlemen like that on. They've seen, extreme combat. They also have some life lessons because they've been living on this planet a little bit longer than maybe some of the rest of you all out there listening. This is definitely no exception. Today we have with us Colonel Clifford Worthy, and Colonel Worthy was one of the first African-American individuals to go and graduate from West Point, back when they called them the Black Knights. And he has a great book out there about that, and we're going to have Colonel Worthy tell you about it. But first, Colonel, thank you so much for joining our audience.
You're welcome. Glad to be with you.
So you mentioned a little bit off air there that you currently hail from Michigan. Did you grow up in Michigan?
Well, I started off in Atlanta until I was 11 years old, and we moved to Michigan in 1939 from Atlanta. My family did. And, of course, I've claimed Michigan as my home state.
Awesome. And when you finished up in the military, did you go back to Michigan? You've been living there for many years, or did you travel around the U.S. for a while first?
No, I'm in Michigan. I'm in a town called Bloomfield Hills, Michigan, which is a suburb of Detroit. I've been there since I retired in 1976 from the military.
Wonderful. So could you tell us, just about your background, how you ended up at West Point? It's a fascinating background. I've looked into it a little bit. I think the audience would greatly benefit from the challenges and, just your mindset and things like that led you there.
Well, I entered Wayne University, which is in Detroit, Michigan, when I was 16 years old as a pre-med student. I was supposed to be the family doctor, not only for my immediate family, but for my extended family. And I had a chance encounter meeting with an ex-cadet who was visiting the university at the same time. Was in Old Main. That's the main, at that time, was the main administrative building of Wayne University. That's before Wayne University became Wayne State. I was a pre-med student, as I said, with the chances of going to med school about 0 to none because my folks could not afford to send me to medical school. So anyway, I met this young man, and he had left the academy, and we had a conversation. I recognized him because of the clothes that he was wearing, the uniform he was wearing. I asked a lot of questions. Before that conversation, I had no interest or knowledge of the military. And anyway, we talked, and he said, well, why not ask your congressman for an appointment to West Point? You seemed interested. So at that time, 3-cent stamp, I wrote a letter to my congressman thinking I would never hear again. And a couple of weeks later, I got a response back from John Dingell Sr., the father of the John Dingell, who was the dean of the House of Representatives. He died just recently. But his father was the one who started the ball rolling to get him into West Point. I was in 1946. Took about 3 years before I actually got in, but Congressman Dingell persisted, and I entered West Point July 1st, 1949. As I said, I had not planned that, but it worked out fine. It was just one of those unexpected opportunities that hit me, and I don't regret a bit of it.
That's really interesting. I came across the Naval Academy in almost the same way. My sister, kind of out of the blue. I mean, we were very similar. We were, grew up poor on a farm in southern Illinois that we had basically went through foreclosure right before that, and didn't have the money to go anywhere. And my sister, who had really good grades, was a year ahead of me, and she applied to the Naval Academy, and I didn't even know what the place was at the time. And I said, "Well, that's interesting. What's that place?" Well, she ends up not going, and I do go, for the same reason. So just a conversation with another person. Mine was a little more direct. Like I actually got to see her go all the way through the application process. But the earliest lesson in our conversation here is to never close your mind to new ideas, right? I mean, that was just
exactly.
It was amazing. It was just
that's
a conversation.
Right.
Yeah.
Be ready for unexpected opportunities, and that's exactly what happened to me.
Wow. And so a little different scenario, though, in the late 1940s when you went to West Point. You weren't the very first African-American, or were you, to go through that school?
Oh, no, not the first,
okay.
but one of the earlier graduates, yes.
Okay. And so certainly, just kind of give some perspective, were there a handful of African-Americans in your class?
Yeah, there was a total of 12 at the academy.
Okay.
3 in my class.
Got it. It's really kind of neat when you look at the book. I mean, you had the opportunity to talk with a congressman. I guess it was his son who actually wrote the comment in your book, or one of the endorsements of your book. Is that accurate?
That's correct. It was his son, John Dingell Jr.,
okay.
And he was the one that wrote the foreword in the book.
Wow. And so you finished up at West Point, and you joined the military and did a full career in the Army, and you had service in Vietnam, and you, if I understand right, you were in the electronic systems.
Well, that was one.
That was one.
It was one of my. That was a relatively short assignment. I wouldn't consider that one of the primary assignments that I had. But I did spend a period of time there at Fort Bliss with the Electronic Systems Test Division.
But you left West Point as a field artillery officer. Is that true?
That's correct. That was my branch selected. Mm-hmm.
And you were a battalion commander in Vietnam, so you were that would have made you a major or a colonel?
I was a lieutenant colonel as a battalion commander in Vietnam. Yeah, I commanded a 8-inch 175 gun composite battalion in Vietnam in 1968.
Wow. I would have thought you saw service you missed World War II, but you definitely saw Korean War, I think, right?
No, I didn't. Korean War was over 2 months before I graduated from West Point in 1953.
Okay.
So I missed the Korean War.
One of the things that they say, we always talk about now is that we're constantly at war with terrorism, but a lot of Americans out there are not paying any attention to that. I mean, it's true for those that are in service, but the entire country, though, was a continuous war from World War II through Vietnam. And I think that's something it was the focus of what we were doing out there. And then, of course, we had the Cold War after it. But, I mean, that's my perspective, at least, of reviewing history, that there was not a lot of break between Korea and Vietnam. It wasn't one of those times where the Army came back and kind of went back into garrison as we did after World War I. Is that your memory, too? I mean, we were either in conflict or preparing when you first came out?
Yeah, I guess that's a pretty good assessment of that at that time. Actually, if you were asking me about my time in Vietnam, I went in 1968, just after the Tet Offensive.
Uh-huh.
And I was there from 1968 to 69. I commanded a field artillery battalion for 6 months. And then they were trying at that time to get as many lieutenant colonels as possible for combat duty. So they were selecting lieutenant colonels primarily to command in Vietnam to get that command experience. And so I was one of the ones that did that. And the last 6 months I had another assignment within the Corps.
Got it. Okay, so kind of cycling through a little quickly. They still play those games, by the way, sir. My submarine command was 23 months long, and they're by the book they're 28 to 32, and it was just another deployment was coming, and we needed to get more people experience, and I completely understand that. I feel graced to have had the time, which was a lot longer than you had, at least in that command. Did you get another? Did you get another opportunity, another command opportunity while you were on active duty?
Not another command opportunity, no, but I had several assignments. When I left Vietnam, I went to the Pentagon. I was there for 4 years. That assignment, I had previously been sent to the University of Arizona to get a master's degree in mechanical engineering as a part of kind of an advanced school program for selected officers. So that prepared me for the assignment that came up after Vietnam in the Office of the Chief of Research and Development. I was a staff officer there, working with primarily with field artillery missiles and both howitzer cannon and missile artillery. And then from there, I was selected to be one of the military assistants to the Undersecretary of the Army. So I spent 2 years there with him. Followed that, I went to an Industrial College of Armed Forces, which is one of those schools that some officers and both military and senior civilians tend to study country resources, and so I spent a year there. And then followed that, I went to Fort Sill, Oklahoma, to be the head of the Field Artillery Systems and department at the Field Artillery School. And then back to Michigan to the Automotive Command. My first wife died while I was there at Fort Sill, and I felt that with the two youngsters that I had, one of which was a special needs youngster, that I should not probably stay in the Army chasing around the world with two youngsters, with one special needs. So I decided to retire, and I asked for assignment to the Tank Automotive Command in Detroit, Michigan, or actually a suburb of Detroit, Warren, Michigan. Yes, and it was kind of an out of my branch assignment, but I wanted to be near family here. I have a lot of family in Detroit because of my children, and it was kind of a career-ending assignment, and then I was by my choice because I had the youngster to be concerned with, and I just felt it was more important to take care of them.
Probably one of the more heroic ones you've done, right? I mean, it's extremely important. It's also a common story that you laid out for all of those out there that are not career officers. All of the moving sounded exhausting in your conversation there, but it's pretty common, right? I mean, it was not that unusual moving around like that at that time or even today.
Not uncommon at all. I had several other assignments that intertwined with what I just described to you. While I was in the Pentagon, did something different than other things. So, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I had 22 addresses during my time in the military.
Well, you missed me by one. I had 23 different.
It's just like you said,
moves,
right?
Anyway,
it was just the way it was done, or is done. If you had something to tell your 21-year-old self, the second lieutenant coming out of West Point, what would that be? What is the wisdom you have now that you don't feel like you had back then?
If coming out of West Point, you were well prepared for a career in the military. I had a wonderful 4 years at West Point. It prepared me for what the rest of my life held for me. And I would tell any young man who had his future ahead of him to be prepared for one of these unexpected events that happens. And just things don't always come just based on study alone, hard study and hard work. But that prepares you for your future and to make the most of it. And it's particularly important for a young black African American because the opportunities are not as few and far between sometimes. But he has to realize that here it is. I've got it. I'm going to seize it, make the most of it. And he's going to run into some bad people, but there's some good folks out there too that will assist him along the way. And I had a wonderful career in the military, and I had a wonderful time as working for General Motors, and so I have no regrets in my life. And my special needs son, that was a real challenge for me because at that time there was very little out there to assist with youngsters youngsters like him. And so in my travels, I was always on the lookout for where could I go to get some help for him, and that was a real challenge. And that story is told in the book quite a bit too, and rightfully so. I retired from the Army in 1976, retired from General Motors later in 1991.
And what have you done after 1991, sir?
After 1991, I have been retired, and I've been associated with different groups. I was especially those that are concerned with special needs youngsters, because of my son who died about 4 or 5 years ago now. So I was active with several organizations which are listed in that book there, particularly one called Angel's Place that I worked with them for a number of years, and other organizations as well. So that's what's kept me busy.
Yeah.
And then writing this book kept me busy too.
So tell us a little bit about Angel's Place.
Well, Angel's Place, they provide homes for developmentally disabled adults, 26 years of age and older. And it's a wonderful organization. Right now, we started basically in 1992, and I got involved with them a year later. At that time, there was 5 ladies who had, one of which had a special needs daughter, and they couldn't find satisfactory help for them, so they started Angel's Place. And I got to know them, and I started working with them, got on the board of directors 2 or 3 times along the way. But the real thing that stood out with Angel's Place is that if a young person was accepted in Angel's Place, he was there for life, and they were prepared to take care of him, even when his parents or his guardians were gone. He would still have a place, and so they've done a terrific job, and they're well established, and I enjoyed my work with them.
Oh, that's fantastic. So, audience, I'm just catching you up a little bit. So, Angel's Place is it's actually, I guess, Southfield, Michigan, right? So it's near Detroit.
That's where they're headquartered. That's right.
Mm-hmm. And are they all across the country, or are they mainly in the Detroit area?
They're mainly in the metropolitan Detroit area. 21 homes now.
Wow.
We started with nothing, but now we've got 21 homes, and they're all wonderful residences that I would be happy to be living in any one of them.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. And audience, as Heroic Investors, you can find out more at angelsplace.com. They have a nice website and quite a bit of information. And then for Colonel Worthy's book, the title of his book is The Black Knight, an African-American Family's Journey from West Point, A Life of Duty, Honor, and Country. And that one's available on Amazon and probably just about anywhere else. So, Colonel, we've kind of gone through your career, and we've talked about your amazing support to Angel's Place and other charities that have focused on individuals with disabilities. What else is out there that you feel like either veterans, active duty members, or even first responders would benefit greatly from? What have I not asked you, I guess, is really my question.
Well, you've covered the bases pretty well.
Okay.
There are all kinds of opportunities out there, and my objective for the book was be prepared to accept and make the best of whatever. When you receive one of these opportunities, because my career began totally on an unexpected basis. As far as I would just tell, and I'm particularly concerned with young African-American men and women, because sometimes accessibility is more limited for them, and I just wanted to be sure that they were ready, make themselves ready to tackle whatever opportunity that they faced.
Wonderful. Well, Colonel, thank you so much for your service to this nation in the military and afterwards your service to other people. We really appreciate a little bit more service of giving us some time here to relay your story and give some advice. Thank you for being on our show.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for listening. Please be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss any episodes. Be sure to check out the show's specific website and our general website, hartmanmedia.com, for appropriate disclaimers and terms of service. Remember that guest opinions are their own, and if you require specific legal or tax advice or advice in any other specialized area, please consult an appropriate professional. And we also very much appreciate you reviewing the show. Please go go to iTunes or Stitcher Radio or whatever platform you're using and write a review for the show. We would very much appreciate that. And be sure to make it official and subscribe so you do not miss any episodes. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode.